Hey, what's going on, guys? All right, so in this video, we're gonna focus on form validations for the registration page. Oh, and by the way, I added the error page route here at the bottom. I forgot to do that within the previous video, but all you have to do is just do the exact same thing we did here. Give it a route of error, and then point it to the error page, which is sitting within the root of for our setup. All right, so yeah, so in any case, the first thing I want to do is I want to import the dashboard page along with the template for our email. Remember, we set up an email, we designed an email template for when we send emails to after the user has registered. So the first thing I'll do is let me start with the dashboard. So I'm just going to copy everything that's in here, and then here within the JSP folder, I'm going to add a new file here for dashboard. Dashboard.jsp. Okay, then I'm just going to paste everything within here. Now, like I said, don't stress about the templating that's within here. I mean, the HTML code that's within here. We will clean this up a bit later on, but I just wanted to convert everything so that I can close VS Code. So the other thing is here, I'm going to create another package, and I'm going to call this help us. Okay, and then in here, I'm going to create a class called HTML. All right, so within here, I'm going to create a method. I'm going to say public uh, static, and then it's going to return a string, and then it's going to be HTML email template. Okay, now this template is going to take in a string of a token string along with a code. Okay, and then within here, let me just turn an empty string for now. First thing I want to set up here is a URL, which is it's going to equal to the URL string. um, um, this is the URL string that we're going to use to redirect the user to verify the account. So for now, I'm going to copy that over there. uh, Sorry. Okay, and then I'm going to paste it within here, and then this is going to have the route of verify, and then we're going to append, we're going to say token, and then there's going to be plus the token that's going to come from the input, and then plus we're going to say code. Actually, I have to say and code equals to, I actually forgot that here, and then we're going to say plus code. All right, okay, so now what we do is we come here to the email template we created, we just copy all of that, and then in here we're going to create a string, and we're going to say it's equal to, let's just call it email template, right? Okay, so remember, well, like I said, all of these other items we had to change them to single quotes so that it doesn't conflict with Java. So now the only thing we have to do, since we copied everything within that email body over here, we can just paste like that. I know it looks a bit weird, but don't stress about this. Um, it's just going to be fine. So now here, down here, I hope you can see it, but there where we created our button to redirect the user to the verify accounts page. There where it says href, all we have to do there is just put in double quotes, then plus, and then this is gonna have the URL string. Just make sure that the double quote doesn't it's not just make sure that the URL string, I mean the double quotes are formatted correctly so that it doesn't conflict. But in any case, that should be it. So when they click on that button, it should redirect them back to this URL we just set up here at the top. Okay, so now I think we can close off VS Code. I don't think there's anything else we need in here. All right, so yeah, I hope you guys were able to see what I was doing there. I know this looks messy, but like I said, it's much easier. You'll see why I did it this way once we get to the point where we have to set up the email configuration and so forth. Okay, so for now, let's just close this, and then let's close the dashboard. We will get to that later. By the way, in here, we can also set up that route. So we said verify, right? And then you can just change this to verify page, copy that, paste it there, paste it there. And then now, even though this is the route that we're gonna send the user to, we don't need to stress about this, but we will change it later. All what's this gonna do is gonna redirect us back to the login page once the account is verified. But for now, let's just leave it as it is. We will get to this a bit later on. All right, so let's just get to the main core of the video. So um, the other thing I need to create within this package over here is a models folder. So we're going to say models, then we're going to create a user class. Okay, so now if you remember in the video where we created our database, um, these were the columns that we set up. Okay, so in our user class, we're going to set up these columns. So in here, the first one is going to be private, and then we're going to say int user ID. So now the other thing is make sure you name it exactly as how these columns are set up within your users table in your database. Otherwise, the JPA um, repository is gonna complain or give us errors all the time we deploy it. Okay, so let me just minimize that, and then we're gonna say private. I think the next one was first name, last name, email. Okay, let me just copy that, which is first name, okay, and then we have last name, and then we have email, and then we have password, and then we have token and code, then the next one should be verified and verified at. Okay, so verified is going to be an integer, and then verified at is going to be a date time, so we're going to say local, I think you can just say local date, and then what else? We have created ad and verified ad. So you can say this one can be local, um, date and time. So let's just copy this. Okay. So the other thing we need to do here is say annotate this as an entity. Might as well do it now before we start working with the JPA. So this is required in order to work with the JPA API. And then we also need to annotate this as ID. Okay. So now the first name you can say at not empty or not null, whichever one you want to go with. And then you can also set up messages within here. If I'm not mistaken, we can say the first name field cannot be empty. Okay, even if you don't set up this message, this will tell you this will automatically set a message when we when the user submits the form. It will tell them this field cannot be empty and so forth. All right, so but I just wanted to show you that you can set up your own message if you wanted to. So again, I'm going to say not empty, and then this one as well. This one even has an email annotation. We can say not empty now, but there's another pattern that I want to set up here. So there's a string that I have. Just one moment, please. So if you can, just pause the video and type this out as you see it over there. So it's just that the thing is, when you type in an email, for example, we can say email at maybe something. If you don't set this pattern up the way we did it here, this can still allow this as an email. You can still look at this and say this is an email, and then allow it to be submitted within the form or within the database. So by setting this pattern up, it's going to require that when they type in the email, it has to have something like a .com and so forth. So that is why I set that pattern up, this regular expression here. So this is the one that works for me. So if you want to just type that out, or if you don't mind, you can just use these annotations here, right? So I think that's it for the email. And then so here we can also say not empty, or if you want to, you can say not now, something like that. And you, by the way, if you want to set the size, you can say something like this and say min, let's say 3 characters. You can do the same for the last name field, etc. All right. What else? The token we don't need to. So these other ones are just fine. So these are the only ones that we can use. We need within the what you call it, within the model. I mean within that we can. These are the only annotations we can set up within the model for our validations. So the other thing is I'm going to create another folder here. Um, and I'm going to call this controller advisor. Okay, so in here you can say So in here, what I wanted to do was set up the model attributes. So I'll show you now shortly. So for example, we can say at model attribute, and then we give it a name. So we can say register user. All right, and then we can set this up to return a user model. So we can say public and then user, and then we can say get user let's make sure to import this from our models folder, and then we can say return um, new user. That's it. So we can then, this is going to be accessible globally, but if you want to, you can set it up within a specific controller, and whatever routes that are in that controller will have access to that model, this model attribute. Okay, so now the other thing is this. um, okay, that's odd. All right, let me just show you what I'm looking for. um, where's the okay, the registration form. So at the top, I'm going to paste in the tags that we're going to use. So just make sure you pause the video and type that out as it is, because we're gonna need the Spring form tags, and then we also need the core tag as well. So this is so that we can now change this particular form to use the Spring what you call it, the Spring tag library. All right, so the first thing I'll type in is the name of that model attribute we just created. So we want to say model uh, attribute, and then we can say register user. Okay, let me just be sure. Yeah, that's correct. It's model attribute. So the name of this must be the same as what we set up here. So let me just copy that while we're at it, and then paste it there. So now by doing this, we then now need to set up the form tags for Spring. So the first thing we need to do is we're gonna say form, and then also at the bottom here where the form closes, you need to do the same. Okay, now we need to change all the input file, fields. So we now have this, the first name, so we're going to say path. Now when we say path and we say first name, the name has to be the same as what's in the model here. Okay, so make sure you when you say path, the name must be the same as this. Okay, so we're going to say path, and then we also need to change this to a Spring form tag. Okay, we do that, and then make sure that you also close it off here, otherwise it's going to give you an issue. Right, and then for the errors to display, we need to say form, and then error or errors, and then say path, and then again the path needs to be the same. um, First, okay, and then the class we can just say text. Oh, actually no, we need to say, yeah, text white, and then I want to say the BG is going to be danger. Okay, and then you're gonna close it off there. Okay, so like I said, we changed this form tag to form double colon and then input, and then make sure you change this from name to path, so that, and then the name, the path name must be the same as what's in here. Now, in the what do you call it, in the advisor controller, this will then bind these form fields to that model, and then so then these what you call it, these annotations that we've set up here will then display the errors that we've set up here within the model itself. By the way, don't forget to set the getters and setters for these items. So I'll say generate getter and setter, select all of them and say okay. Okay, so all right, so I'm gonna do what I just did here, what I just showed you here, for the rest of the fields. I'm gonna pause the video while I do that, and then we can just review them once I'm back. Just one moment for me, please. All right, guys, I'm back. Okay, so just to review, we changed our form and added the form tag, the Spring form tag, which is required. Oh, in order for this to work, you require this particular tag here at the top, the one that says prefix form, and then the URI is going to be that. And so we can then now convert our form to a Spring form tag. So you need to do this so that we can display the errors that we set up within our model. All right, and then make sure at the bottom of the form itself, the ending tag must be the same as at the top. All right, so like I showed you before pausing the video, I've set up all the other fields the same way as I did with the first name, except for the confirm password field. Reason being is I didn't add it within here, and because when the Spring Data JPA API is loading this particular class, it's gonna look, if I were to add the, for example, private string, and if I were to add this field here, it was then when it loads this, it was gonna look for that particular field within this database table, and then it was going to complain and say unable to find column and something like that. So now I did read online that you can add something like, I think it's transient, which therefore this will not be persisted, and then the JPA API will then ignore this particular field and so forth. But I haven't tested this yet, so I prefer to just leave it out entirely. But in any case, yeah, that's the only field that I didn't convert to a Spring form tag. And so as you can see, it's a regular input field, and then here I just set up a small what you call it, element, which is going to have the same class as this particular form errors, what you call it, element over here. All right, so the other thing we need to do now is this form is going to post obviously to the registration routes, right? Okay, so now even though we set up our view for the registration form here within the index page, we could set the post mapping for it within here, but let's just set that up within a different controller. So in here I'll just say register controller. Okay, and then we need to annotate it at the top there as controller. All right, so now we're gonna say at get mapping, sorry, not at get mapping, the post mapping, and then we're gonna say register. Okay, so we can, if you want to, you can take the registration mapping that we have here and paste it within here if need be. It's still gonna do the exact same thing. So let's just take it out um and then put it within here. All right, and then here we'll just have the post mapping. So we're gonna say public model and view, and he's gonna say no, oh yeah, register. Okay, so for our errors to work, we need to say at valid, right? And then we need to import that, and then here we're gonna say at model attribute. So we give it that name. We're gonna say register user, and then we add the user model. Then we can say user, and then we can import that. Okay. And then right after this, we're gonna say uh, binding result, if I'm not mistaken. I just want to verify this. Let me just check my notes. That's definitely it. So, for some odd reason, oh, okay. I I had a semi, oh, what you call it, a brace there. Hmm, needs to close off here. Okay, so binding result, and then obviously we're gonna need to get the request parameters after here. So let me just indent this and set it on a new line. So obviously we're gonna say at request param. That's gonna be the first name. It's gonna be a string, and I'm gonna say first name. Okay, let's just copy, paste that a couple of times. Right, so we need the last name, and then we need the email, and then we need the password. Then we're also gonna take, the confirm password. Okay, all right, so I think that's about it. Yeah, all right, so within here we're gonna say model and view. Then because we're gonna return to the what you call it, the registration page, we're just gonna say reg, and in here we just say register. Okay, so here here's where we're gonna check for errors, and then we're gonna say if, right, we're gonna take that result value, we're gonna say as errors, and then if we want to, within this very same if statement, we can say confirm password dot is empty. Then we can set up our what you call it, our, well, this will by default show those errors based on the annotations we've set up here, but we can then set up the error message for our confirm field. So if you remember, within the registration page, um, I named that variable confirm pass. So I'm going to copy that, and then within here I'm just going to name it the exact same thing, confirm pass, and then I'll set the error message to say the confirm field is required. that's it, and then return registration page. I'm also gonna set this up here. All right, so if I did everything correctly here, um, uh, yeah, if I did everything correctly here, this should display the errors based on our annotations here, and then also this will display an error if the confirm password field is empty. So let's just test it out and see if I didn't do anything wrong there. I'm gonna pause the video while it loads or deploys the file, and then we will check it out once it's back or once it's up. All right, so the server is now up. Let's just check out and see if there's no errors within our application. Okay, so there's a bit of a problem here. So let's see what's going on. Neither binding result nor plain target object being register user available at request attribute. So what did I name this? Register user. Oh, okay. My mistake. I forgot to annotate uh, this as the controller advice. Alright, so make sure you annotate that as the controller advisor, otherwise it's not going to pick up this model attribute. So apologies for that. So I'm going to redeploy the file again, the application again, and we will test it out once it's back. Alright guys, so the server is now up. So hopefully that was the only error. So let's try again. Let's go to the registration page. Okay, so um, if we set up everything correctly, if I click register, it should display the errors um, that are here within the that we set up here within the form itself. So let's try it now and say register. Okay, so oh boy, what is that? Okay, so I didn't set this up correctly. Oh, okay, I know why it's doing this. All right, so but in any case, our errors are now showing, as you can see. Um, what is that? 2147. Okay, but in any case, as you can see, our errors are displaying there, even though they don't look neat and whatnot. But yeah, we can fix that. So okay, our errors are okay. So our errors are displaying, and then the model attribute is working as it should. So now the one thing I need to do now is clean up all of those annotations. So let's go here. So the first thing is I'm gonna set a message here, right, and say please um, enter a valid email. So therefore, it's going to show this message rather than this expression that we set up here. All right, and then I just want to double check. For some odd reason, um, the first name field cannot be empty. The size must be between 3 and okay. So okay, let me just check here. All right, so you know what? Let's just set a message in here as well. Otherwise, if we leave the default one, it's just going to show some nonsense. All right, the first first name field cannot be less or must be greater than 3 characters. Is it characters? Okay, and I'm gonna do the same for the last name field. Okay, so it'll check whether or not wait, yeah, it must be minimum, it must be 3 characters, then it'll check by default if it's more than 3 or if it's less than 3, and then it'll display this error message rather than it showing whatever it wants to show. All right, not empty. I'm gonna set the same thing for the last name field. So I'm gonna copy that and then paste that in there and say last name. Okay, and then what else? Okay, so yeah, that should be fine. All right, so let's test it out. I'm gonna redeploy the file again, and then we will check and see if our messages now display accordingly. One moment for me, please. All right, so the server is now up. Let's try again. So I just need to refresh here. All right, so let's click register. Okay, that's a bit better. At least now it doesn't show that gibberish that we saw before. And then as you can see, the default, the custom message that we set for the confirm field is also showing. Right, so this could be set up. I could add padding and all of that, but we don't need to do that. I think this should suffice as displaying our for displaying our error messages and whatnot. So, all right, so yeah, if you wanted to, that's how you would work towards what you call it, validate using Spring Boot to validate what you call it, your form fields. And then again, this is due to one of those dependencies that we added here within what you call it, our pom.xml file. So yeah, if you want to do that, that's how you would work on trying to I mean, that's how you would set up validations within Spring Boot using the model attribute that we set up here. Don't forget to add it as a controller advisor. By doing this, we access it globally around all of the controllers. So, but if you wanted to, you could still take this and put it here within the registration controller. It still would have worked, but only it was only going to be accessible to whatever routes that were in here. Okay, so yeah, that's it for the video in terms of what we needed to do in validating. So within the next video, we should set up all that we need to register the user within the database and so forth. All right, guys. So that's it for the video. Again, if you've liked what you've seen so far, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'll be seeing you guys within the next video. All right, cheers for now.